I can't get it. He did. Vince loud. Yes. Rock on. So today we are going to do Holeyboard tips and tricks for setting up your personal board. Over the years, many people have asked me, how do I do this? How do I do that? And a little bit of knowledge goes a long way. Before you get started, what you're going to need, if you don't have one, is a 3-foot patch cord. And why you're going to want that, it makes your life easier. Let's say you've got a nice delay pedal on your top shelf, and let's say we've kind of got the chain going over here, and we've got our ZVEX box of rock, my favorite pedals. You're gonna have to go from this part of the board down, around, up to get to the top shelf. So, make your life easy. You just get a 3-foot patch cord. That guy can fish right under here, from there to there, like so. The first thing we're going to show is how to attach rubber feet to your Holeyboard, the aluminum series. If you do a couple of little tricks, it goes really smoothly. The first thing is we're going to take our rubber foot. There's a small hole on one side, large hole on the other. Large hole's facing up. We take our M6 nut, and we're going to press that nut into the big hole, and then we're just going to take a screwdriver and just push it down just so it's seated. You don't have to push hard. It's sitting inside. Nut's ready, your foot is ready to go. Second part is then we just take the Holeyboard. I just put it on its end. I put my M6 screw through the top, hold it with one finger, and then this, I've got the small hole, not the large hole, and I'm gonna push the screw through the small hole just a little bit so it's like that, and then I'm gonna pinch with my fingers on the sides of the rubber foot. So if you imagine I'm holding the nut in there, and then I'm just turning the screwdriver, and I'm just gonna turn it until this doesn't spin. Done. So the next thing that we're gonna do is how do I lay out a Holeyboard from the beginning to make it easy to set up. So this is what I do first. I just lay them on the board kind of in the order that I'm thinking of setting it up to make it faster. One of the tricks that I use during setup, if you ever are tight on space, is that you can stagger the pedals. So you can certainly put them like this if you have a lot of room. If you want things to be tighter, you can see if I push this down and if I stagger them one back a little bit further, then I can get that width as all that's being taken up is from the patch cord itself. It's a pretty good layout, so I put these guys back on the table, put these guys here in order so I can remember where I was going. And then I would start with my wah, and this we get kind of two birds with one stone. Everybody wants to know, will my wah fit? How do I connect a wah? Do zip ties work with the wah? Zip ties are the greatest invention of the 20th century, and yes, they work. And so what I do is take the zip tie, and remember the flat end is where we're gonna poke that end through. Lay out your wah, and the Clyde Deluxe is a pretty good example because it's a bit of a beast. While it's laying like this, I actually put the zip tie through the top and the bottom. I'll show you this. What you do is you want the zip tie as close to the edge of that hole, and I'm going to pull that over. It's not super tight yet, it's snug, right? And on a wah, it's helpful to do too. So I've got, and I'm just sliding it in between the treadle and the main body. So I put this one in, put that one in, tuck the end in. The closer I am to making a right angle, when it's at a corner, it's going to be a lot stronger, okay? There we go. That is our wah, super solid. The next thing we're going to do is when I put the pedals on, I started with the wah, and I'm basically going from the input of my guitar, and I'm going to go all the way down to where I'm going to come out with, all right? So I'm going to kind of do one at a time, and it's easy to change them in and out after that's done. So I'm going to take my fuzz pedal, attaching just the 1/4-inch cable. Don't worry about power right now, all right? We're going to get to power. Power's pretty easy, and I found it's faster to go this way. And I'm looking for a good spot to put a zip tie on this pedal. And one of the tricks that I do is that a zip tie isn't very thick. And on most pedals, you can actually slide it underneath your knobs. You see that? That's exactly how I'm going to attach it, because I want it touching the body, and I don't want to block any of my lights or controls. I don't want it in the way of my plugs. So then I'm going to find some holes that look approximately close to that location, which I've got one right there. I'm going to tuck in the end, and I'm going to tuck in the end not super tight. I just want it snug. I want it tight. And then I can tuck it in. I'm like, oh yeah, it's looking pretty good. One of the tricks that's important that I do, people say, well, are the zip ties gonna loosen or is my pedal gonna move? Zip ties, they're softer than the paint. They won't scratch your pedals. They do stretch a tiny bit. So when I put it on first, it's gonna stretch a little, and if I take a pair of pliers, I can just gently pull, and then I can tighten it a little bit more. You hear a click, sync it up that last little bit. Nice and super solid. So I'm building the board, and I've put a couple more pedals on, and I want to point out a couple features. You know, I play this overdrive more than anything else, and I usually want to kick it in kind of for a solo. So you can see I position this down a little bit lower, so it's easier for my foot to hit it. You know, that's one of the things that you can do with a Holeyboard pretty easily. We've got a nice, there's like 7.5 inches front to back below the top shelf, and how you positioning things front to back helps because we're also on a curve, so it's easy for your foot to hit it. It's on the same arc as your foot, and then I put things front to back. Another thing to remember, here's my box of rock. You don't have to put the zip ties side to side. You also have vertical, right? So sometimes a pedal, you're like, this might make sense to go vertically rather than side to side, either way. So the next thing that we're gonna do, and it's one of the questions that I get, is this guy is a big pedal, and people say, well, how many zip ties do you send me? All Holeyboards come with a little pile of zip ties to get you going, and then you can always buy them. I prefer 50-pound tensile strength, 14-inch length. I found works great for just about anything. Like, well, Chris, this zip tie doesn't fit around my pedal, right? So you take 2 zip ties, blow your mind, and then we're just going to attach 2 zip ties together. Put this guy on here, and I'm going to slide one through there, attach it down here, and if you imagine, we're working on like a parallelogram here. I'm going to tuck that under my knobs. I'm going to tighten this so it's kind of right against the body, and voila. Then I can just clip this guy off, which I don't normally do until the very end, but this one just so it's not in the way. All right, 2 zip tie technique. So next what we're going to get to, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is where you want your 36-inch cable. So I've got my distortion, I've got my box of rock, and I need to go, my chain, my signal chain is starting at the wah and going through my fuzz, and then I'm going to go back over, since more or less we go right to left with our inputs and outputs. So I'm just going to plug this 36-inch cable into the box of rock. I'm going to feed it underneath my top shelf, and I'm going to go to my input. It could be, you know, 2 right angles or 2 straights, depending on what you need and what you prefer. And you can see that that's getting us from the bottom to the top. So this is the board that I want to set up now. I've left myself some room for some more pedals. As you've seen, I just used the patch cables, our 1/4-inch patch cables. I've got the layout, and I've left all of the zip ties unclipped. And as I mentioned in the beginning, they stretch a tiny bit. So when you're at the very end, you're like, oh, that's looking good. I just take pliers, and not too hard because you can break it from here. Just do a little bit gently and make sure they're all tight and snug. Once they're tight and snug, I take this, scissors or a wire clippers, whatever you got. Get them all cut nice and neat, like so. And voila. I've attached all the pedals first, and then I can attach my power supply. The Holeyboards are designed to hold virtually any power supply. Big fan of Walrus Audio. This is the Phoenix, which fits great. This is 15 outputs. This baby fits really easily under the top shelf. You can see this is the Atos. Also fits nice if you want to do 8 outputs. Widely used in the world, and I've had this baby for maybe 10 years. Voodoo Labs Pedal Power 2 fits fine. You can see I've got more than enough space. It actually will easily fit the Voodoo Labs Mondo as well, right? It was designed to do that. Let's say right now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5 pedals that I need power for. And what I do is I attach 5 9-volt cables. This is the easy way to do it. And I've kind of got all of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take the cables and I just tuck them underneath the shelf. And I put a power supply under here. You can see I've got this dangling in front with my outputs. The nice part in the Atos, and I'm going to show you two concepts that I did with it that to never forget about with the Holeyboards. I'm putting this one sideways because it makes it easier for me to get to unplug and plug in additional the 9-volt cables. And the other thing is I used 2 zip ties. Remember how we had 2 zip ties up on our Super Puss? Because it's a bigger one to get around. And then I use the edge. You know, you don't always have to be in between the holes. You see it? Like if a pedal fits really well and it goes right to the edge, great. You know, there's no downside, makes it easier to plug in. People ask all the time, do 1/4-inch patch cords fit through the holes, and what's the diameter of the holes? Well, the holes aren't designed to handle the patch cables because personally, the only failures I've had during gigs is because a cord has failed, a patch cable. And to be kind to them, I think the less that you can bend them, the better. So I don't really want them tucked under, wrapped and around. I like them laying on top. I see where they are. They stay out of, I put in, these are real screwed in feet and you're an inch off the floor. You know, with other kind of liquids, play an outdoor show, people spill beer or whatever. I really want everything as much as I can to be protected on the bottom. That said, sometimes to clean it up, I will tuck the power cables, especially, if I'm going to the top shelf. It makes it kind of neat. I'll see, well, here's my Super Puss that's on the back. I'll take one of these guys closest to here. Show you what I'm doing. Right under the shelf, I'm gonna go through this hole, pop it in, super clean. I just kind of tuck it in so it's underneath the top shelf. And that's the process I would use for the rest of my power cables. I just kind of take them one down each side. I usually do tuck them underneath the 1/4-inch cables. Do nicely. They lay in the back. If you prefer the look, you can go underneath through these nice cutouts. You can come close to your pedal, come to the top and pop it right there. It's a nice clean way to do it for the power cords. Voila, and we are ready to go. You got the nice grips for coming to and from a gig, loading it easily, and everything's super solid and it's all set. I'll show you one more trick. You might not have wire cutters, but most people have. You need a scissors, and any screwdriver or a Leatherman works great. I use it for everything around the house. Pair of pliers. Let's say you want to change out a pedal easily and you're like, whoa, I want to put a different fuzz. Just take any pair of pliers, grip on to the little connector on the zip tie, twist, and it comes right off. And then you just kind of, take this baby out. Then you can pop in, whatever you want. Maybe you want to do an EP booster. And then you just find some nice holes and zip that baby on. And voila! Those are the tips and tricks for the Holeyboard Pedalboard setup. Enjoy and go play some music. Sammy, my greatest cat in the world, and Yoda, the second greatest cat in the world, and I guess Maui's tied for the greatest cat in the world. I'm trying to mount this on my board, and what I'd want to do is find some holes, appropriate location. Well, the kids are all jealous of my love for Sammy. It's true. Oh, there we go.
Now we're done?
Now we're done.